Alright, hello everybody. My name is Emily Peterson, and the question that I have for today is what are the pitfalls, if any, with differentiated instruction that teachers should be aware of? Well, I just have some pictures here, so if you look up here, our first picture is how to reach every kid. Now, as you can see, some of the students are engaged in raising their hand, and others are kind of dozing off. They might be uninterested, they have their head down, they could be frustrated. So what do we do? Well, that's when differentiated instruction comes into play. Differentiated instruction is meeting the needs of every unique learner. Well, how am I, or how are teachers supposed to do differentiated instruction? In our conversation that we were having with our group, Devin had mentioned, how am I supposed to differentiate when I have homework to grade, I have papers I need to look at, I have emails and phone calls and meeting and so much more to do? How am I supposed to differentiate instruction as well? Well, I think the number one pitfall or cons of differentiated instruction is time. Now, I am a huge supporter of differentiated instruction. However, it does have some downfalls to it. So I'm going to click here and we are going to look at some of the downfalls. Just scroll down. Alright, so the drawbacks. This person states that one reason is because preparing the multiple activities and supplemental materials for single class as called for by differentiated instruction is very time consuming. Just like Devin, this person mentions that they have homework to grade and papers and tests, and that it's just so hard to find time when they have all of that to do. Another pitfall that this article mentions is the large amount of work differentiated instruction requires of teachers is problem for students alike. It talks about the social life of teachers. Something about teaching is it's not just at school. A lot of teachers will take their work home with them. They'll grade papers at home. They'll look at the homework. Kind of going along with time. It's just teaching in general is time consuming, and then trying to differentiate instruction, and you have so many materials, you have different lesson plans you have to plan. It just all gets too much and it kind of overtakes the teacher's life. So this paragraph kind of just explains how a downfall of differentiated instruction is that teachers aren't having that social life. Another issue that I want to bring up is that the different pathways. So with differentiated instruction, it allows the students to choose what they want to do, and this paragraph talks about how one student might choose like an art project that they want to do to show their knowledge of a certain topic, while a different student might choose a writing piece or a research article or something like that. And this article is talking about how since most college majors demand writing, one student has moved further than the other towards college readiness because they're doing it in different ways. They're going down different paths. The last thing I want to talk about is the group work. This paragraph says, finally, group work has its own problems. 77% of teachers say that in group work, high achieving students do a bulk of the work. So we talk about grouping a lot in differentiated instruction, and in mixed ability classrooms you might it's called heterogeneous grouping, and that's when you put students of mixed abilities in one group. And this article is saying that 77% of teachers say that in group work, high achieving students do a bulk of the work, so they're doing most of it. So is it really meeting the needs of those low-level learners? Because the whole reason they do that is so the high achieving students or the advanced learners can kind of scaffold and support the learning of the struggling students. Well, is that really happening? And I think that's another downfall with differentiated instruction. So one story I'd like to share is in my student teaching, one of the activities I allowed my students to do was if they came across a word in their reading, instead of coming up and asking me, I kind of allowed them to use the iPad to look up their word, and they can look up pictures to help them. And I was giving them kind of an independent responsibility to do work on their own. This was really great, except for I had one problem. It was trust. Every time, well, not every time, but most of the students would say they're looking up academic vocabulary, but most of the time they were researching football and other things on the iPad, and they weren't doing what they were supposed to do. So one issue that I personally have with differentiated instruction is trusting. Because like I was talking about earlier, we group a lot of our students, and the teacher might be working with one student or might be working with a group of students. Well, what is the rest of the class doing? How do you earn their trust? So I found this website, and it says trust is crucial to the independent learning process. This is true. Learning goes both ways, and what they're saying is that just as students who have negative experiences with teachers are more likely to distrust future teachers, teachers of disruptive and disrespectful students learn to distrust all students. As a result, teachers tighten the rules and narrow the focus. We develop an attitude that we can't trust our students to learn independently. Especially in the early grades, we feel it is our responsibility to control every aspect of their learning activities so things don't get out of hand or so they don't make a mess. Hence, Johnson claims that teachers teach students to obey rather than to build, to explore. After reading this article, I learned that just as students need to trust us, we need to trust them. And down here it says teaching is just as much about taking risk as learning is. A teacher has to take a chance on students and trust them enough to be independent learners. So we need to trust them. We need to give them a chance to show that they are responsible and that they can be independent learners. And down here it just gives some tips for developing higher levels of trust with students. One major thing I saw was establishing rules. Teachers need to set the stage. They need to set their expectations. They need to tell the students what their job is and their roles. And by doing that, then it's up to the students. Once the teacher has set their expectations and their rules for independent learning, it's up to the students. If they choose to not listen to the rules, then that's their choice. Then they might lose that privilege. So that was my question that I had, and I hope I covered most of the pitfalls. There are some more, but I think the time and the trusting and the grouping. I think those are the major pitfalls of differentiated instruction that teachers should be aware of. Thanks for listening. Bye.